Captain Lee Donghyuk's voice echoed across all the human ships through their quantum communication network. All vessels prepare for synchronized pulse. Every crew member needs to focus on the strongest emotions you can feel. Think about Earth, about your families, about why we're fighting. Dr. Park Minji monitored the quantum resonance levels as crews throughout the small human fleet began concentrating on their deepest feelings: fear, anger, love, determination, all the chaotic emotions that made humans so different from the telepathic Valdrak. Quantum field strength increasing, she reported. I'm reading emotional resonance from over 3,000 crew members across all our ships. Engineer Choi Hyun-soo watched his instruments with growing amazement. The quantum processors are amplifying the effect beyond anything we saw in our tests. Human consciousness is more powerful than we realized. War Master Kethvar sensed something changing in the battle. Through his telepathic abilities, he could feel strange disturbances in the quantum fields around the human ships. The sensation was unlike anything in his 3 centuries of conquest. What are these creatures doing? He asked his science officer through their mental link. Unknown, War Master. Our sensors detect massive quantum fluctuations centered on the human vessels. Kethvar felt the first stirring of unease. These primitives had already surprised him repeatedly with their impossible technologies and unpredictable tactics. What were they planning now? On the Taegukam, pilot Nam Soo-young felt the ship's systems responding to the collective will of its crew. The neural interface that connected her to the vessel was carrying not just her thoughts, but the emotions and determination of everyone aboard. Captain, she said with wonder in her voice, I can feel the entire crew through the ship's systems. We're all connected through the quantum field. Security Chief Park Kyung-min was thinking about the boarding mission, about looking into the eyes of Valdrak commanders and seeing their confusion and fear when they realized humans could not be predicted or controlled. Medical officer Dr. Song Yoon-ji focused on every person she had treated, every life she had saved, and her determination to protect the billions of innocent people on Earth below. Flight leader Jung Hanul and her fighter pilots were remembering their training, their families, their love for the world they were defending. 36 small ships surrounded by an enemy fleet 100 times their size, but united by something the Valdrak had never encountered. Quantum resonance at maximum levels, Dr. Park announced. All ships reporting ready. Execute synchronized pulse, Captain Lee ordered. The wave of amplified human consciousness exploded outward from the small fleet, like a supernova of chaotic thought and emotion. Every quantum processor on every human ship contributed to the pulse, creating a wall of mental energy that struck the Valdrak fleet with devastating effect. War Master Kethvar screamed as the pulse hit his telepathic mind. It was like having thousands of voices shouting directly into his consciousness at once. Voices that thought in patterns no telepathic species had ever developed. Across the Valdrak fleet, ships suddenly went dark as their crews collapsed under the telepathic overload. Pilots lost control of their vessels, gunners forgot how to aim their weapons, and commanders found themselves unable to think clearly through the chaos filling their minds. The synchronized human pulse didn't just disrupt Valdrak communication systems. It attacked the very foundation of their telepathic civilization. Minds that had never learned to function independently suddenly found themselves cut off from the mental networks they depended on for everything. Direct hit on the War Master's flagship, reported Lieutenant Yoon as he watched the massive Valdrak command ship drift helplessly through space. All enemy vessels showing signs of system failures. But the human fleet was also suffering from the effort. The synchronized pulse had drained their quantum processors and left many crew members exhausted from the mental strain. We can't do that again, Dr. Park warned. The quantum systems need time to recharge, and pushing the crew any harder could cause permanent mental damage. Captain Lee studied the tactical display showing hundreds of disabled Valdrak ships floating in space. We don't need to do it again. Look at them. They're completely helpless. Indeed, the mighty 5th Conquest Fleet was in complete chaos. Ships collided with each other as their pilots struggled to function without telepathic guidance. Weapon systems fired randomly or not at all. The perfect coordination that had made the Valdrak Empire invincible was completely destroyed. Engineer Choi reported on the Taegukam's condition. We're operating at 60% power, but all critical systems are functional. Hull damage is manageable. Communications Officer Bei Jina was monitoring transmissions from the disabled Valdrak fleet. Captain, I'm receiving surrender signals from 17 enemy vessels. Others are trying to retreat, but their navigation systems appear to be offline. What about War Master Cathavar's flagship? Captain Lee asked, still drifting. No response to communication attempts. Captain Lee made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Take us to the flagship. It's time to end this. The Tegukum approached the massive Valdrek command vessel, which hung motionless in space like a dead whale. Docking ports that should have been sealed against boarding attempts hung open. The automatic systems that controlled them had failed, along with everything else. Security Chief Park Kyung-min led another boarding party into the alien ship, but this time they found no resistance. Valdrak crew members sat at their stations in stunned confusion, their telepathic abilities still scrambled by the human quantum pulse. Park found War Master Kethvar on his command bridge, staring at displays he could no longer understand. The alien commander looked up as the human soldiers entered, his glowing eyes dim and unfocused. How? Kethvar asked in broken human speech. How do primitive minds defeat the greatest fleet in the galaxy? Park looked at the being who had come to destroy humanity and felt no hatred, only pity for a creature whose entire worldview had just been shattered. You called us primitive because we're different from you, Park explained. But being different isn't the same as being weak. We think thoughts you can't predict. We feel emotions you don't understand. And we create technologies that work in ways you never imagined. Technology specialist Kim Jae-ho was already interfacing with the Valdrak ship's computer systems. Captain, I'm accessing their complete database. Fleet positions, invasion plans, even the locations of other conquered worlds. The information was staggering. The Valdrak Empire controlled over 1,000 star systems and had enslaved hundreds of species. But they had grown complacent after millennia of easy victories, never expecting to face an enemy that couldn't be understood or predicted. Communications Officer Bay transmitted a message from the captured flagship to every Valdrak vessel in the system and beyond, using their own communication networks to spread the news of their defeat. This is Captain Lee Dong-yuk of the Earth Defense Force, the message began. To all Valdrak forces, your War Master has been defeated and your fleet is destroyed. Earth is under human protection. Any attempt to attack our world will be met with the same fate that befell your invasion force. But the message didn't stop there. Dr. Park had discovered something in the captured databases that changed everything, Captain, she reported excitedly. The Valdrak aren't the only ones fighting the Empire. There are dozens of resistance movements on conquered worlds, all waiting for someone to show them that the Valdrak can be beaten. Captain Lee understood immediately. Broadcast our battle records to every system in the Valdrak database. Show them that the Empire can be defeated. The transmissions raced across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, carrying the impossible news that a primitive species had destroyed the Fifth Conquest Fleet. On worlds that had been enslaved for centuries, beings who had given up hope began to believe that freedom was possible. The Corinth of the Antares system, enslaved for 400 years, began sabotaging Valdrak mining operations. The crystalline entities of Vega Prime started jamming telepathic communications. The water dwellers of Kepler 442b launched their own uprising against their oppressors. Within days of Earth's victory, the Valdrak Empire faced rebellions on 50 different worlds. The news that telepathic superiority could be overcome by non-telepathic innovation spread like wildfire through the galaxy. High Commander Vextar, receiving reports of the growing chaos in his empire, finally understood what he was facing. These humans hadn't just defeated a fleet. They had started a revolution that threatened the very foundations of Valdrak civilization. On Earth, in the months following the battle, Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Defense Station, watching as human ships departed for the stars. No longer were humans confined to their single world. They were exploring the galaxy as equals among the stars. Dr. Kang Woo-jin joined him at the observation window. The other species are calling us the Chaos Bringers, beings who think thoughts that can't be predicted and create technologies that shouldn't be possible. And what do you think of that title? Captain Lee asked. Dr. Kang smiled. I think it fits perfectly. We've spent our entire history being told we're too chaotic, too emotional, too unpredictable to achieve greatness. High Commander Vextar's rage echoed through the telepathic networks of the Valdrak Empire. Across dozens of star systems, military commanders felt his fury and understood that something unprecedented had happened on the primitive world called Earth. Summon War Master Kethvar, Vextar commanded through the mental link that connected all Valdrak leaders. Tell him to bring the 5th Conquest Fleet. All of it. War Master Kethvar was the most feared military commander in Valdrak history. He had personally overseen the destruction of 47 worlds and the enslavement of 200 species. When his massive fleet of 500 ships arrived in Earth's solar system, it was like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Captain Lee Dong-hyuk stood on the bridge of the Taegukam, watching the alien armada approach through long-range sensors. The captured intelligence from the command station had warned them this was coming, but seeing it with his own eyes was still overwhelming. 500 ships, Navigator Oh Seung-jin reported quietly, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything we've faced before. Dr. Kang Woo-jin was working frantically with Dr. Park Min-ji to analyze the new intelligence they had captured. The good news is that we now understand their technology much better. The bad news is that we're still just one ship against an empire. Not just one ship anymore, announced General Nam Ki-hwan as he entered the bridge. Phoenix protocol facilities around the world have been working around the clock. We now have 12 operational starships and 36 fighter craft. Captain Lee felt a surge of hope. It was still a tiny force compared to the Valdrak fleet, but at least they wouldn't be fighting alone. What about the new weapon systems? Asked engineer Choi Hyun-soo. Dr. Park looked up from her research station with excitement in her eyes. We've developed something completely new. I call them quantum torpedoes. They use the same principles that disrupt Valdrak telepathic communications, but weaponized. She activated a holographic display showing the weapon's design. When a quantum torpedo explodes near a Valdrak ship, it creates a cascade failure in their telepathic control networks. Every system on their ship that relies on mental interfaces will shut down. Weapons specialist Lim Gi-young studied the new weapon with professional interest. How many can we carry? The Taegukam can hold 20. The other human ships can carry smaller loads. Communications Officer Beijina interrupted with an urgent report. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Valdrak fleet. It's on all frequencies directed at Earth. The main display filled with the image of War Master Kethvar. Unlike other Valdrak they had seen, this one's crystalline armor was darker, almost black, and his glowing eyes burned with cold intelligence. Humans of Earth. Kethvar's voice was calm but filled with menace. I am War Master Kethvar of the 5th Conquest Fleet. You have committed acts of war against the Valdrak Empire. You have destroyed our ships and killed our people. The alien commander paused, letting his words sink in across the planet below. For these crimes, your species will be completely eliminated. No surrender will be accepted. No mercy will be shown. Your world will be sterilized and your civilization will be forgotten. Captain Lee turned to his crew. Well, at least we know where we stand. General, are our other ships ready for combat? As ready as they can be with crews that have only weeks of training instead of years, General Nam replied. But they're all volunteers and they all know what's at stake. Pilot Nam Soo-young was already running final checks on the Taegukam systems. If we're going to do this, we need to use every advantage we have. The Valdrak are expecting us to fight like a normal fleet, with organized formations and predictable tactics. Flight leader Jung Hanul had arrived on the bridge to coordinate with the fighter squadrons. My pilots have been practicing chaos formations, flying patterns that look completely random but are actually carefully choreographed to maximize our effectiveness while confusing telepathic opponents. Lieutenant Yoon brought up the tactical displays showing both the human and alien fleets. They outnumber us 40-1, but their ships are designed to work together through telepathic links. If we can disrupt those links, then their advantage in numbers becomes a disadvantage, Captain Lee finished. Confused ships running into each other, unable to coordinate their attacks. Tactical Officer Shin Min-woo had been developing new battle strategies based on everything they had learned about Valdrak weaknesses. I've created what I call chaos protocols, battle plans that change randomly every few minutes, making it impossible for the enemy to predict our next move. Security Chief Park Kyung-min added his own tactical insight. The boarding operation taught us that individual Valdrak are actually not very effective fighters when they can't rely on telepathic coordination. If this turns into close combat, we have advantages they don't expect. Dr. Song Yunji had been preparing medical facilities on all the human ships. I've studied the alien biology from our prisoners. If any of our people are injured by Valdrak weapons, I now know how to treat those specific injuries. As the massive alien fleet approached Earth, the small human fleet moved out to meet them. The Tegukum led the formation, followed by 11 other starships with names like Agukka, Tokto, and Hangang, vessels built in secret. Facilities around the world and crewed by the best humanity had to offer. War Master Kethvar observed the approaching human ships with contempt. 12 vessels against 500. These creatures are either incredibly brave or completely insane. His tactical officer reported through their mental link. War Master, our sensors indicate that these human ships use the same unknown technology we encountered at the command station. Their faster-than-light drives and weapon systems operate on principles we do not understand. It does not matter, Kethvar replied. Overwhelming force conquers all technologies. Begin the attack. The Valdrak fleet opened fire with energy weapons that could destroy a city with a single blast. But the human ships scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed to make no sense to telepathic minds expecting logical, coordinated responses. Suyong threw the Taigukum into a spinning dive that carried it between two Valdrak ships, so close that their hulls almost touched. The alien gunners, trying to track a target that moved like it was controlled by instinct rather than computers, fired at empty space. Quantum torpedoes, fire, Captain Lee ordered. 20 of the new weapons streaked toward the center of the Valdrak formation. When they exploded, the results exceeded even Dr. Park's predictions. Entire sections of the alien fleet suddenly went dark as their telepathic control systems crashed. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation began drifting helplessly or colliding with their neighbors. The precise battle formations that Valdrak fleets had used for millennia dissolved into chaos. Jung Hanul led her fighter squadrons in a series of attacks that looked like pure madness to the alien commanders. The small human craft dove through gaps in the alien formation, fired their weapons, and disappeared before the Valdrak could respond. Their coordination is completely broken, reported Lieutenant Yoon as he watched the alien fleet struggle to reorganize. Half their ships can't communicate with each other. But the humans were taking losses too. 3 of their ships had been destroyed by lucky hits from Valdrak weapons, and the others were showing battle damage. We can't keep this up forever, Engineer Choi warned. Our quantum torpedo supply is getting low, and they're starting to adapt to our tactics. War Master Kethvar was learning to think like a non-telepathic species, something no Valdrak had ever been forced to do before. He began giving orders verbally through communication systems instead of relying on mental links. All ships, abandon formation protocols, he commanded. Attack individual targets. Do not attempt coordinated maneuvers. The change in tactics caught the human fleet off guard. Without their telepathic vulnerabilities to exploit, the Valdrak ships became much more dangerous opponents. They're adapting faster than we expected, Captain Lee observed, as enemy fire began hitting its targets more frequently. We need a new strategy. Dr. Park looked up from her sensor readings with a desperate idea. What if we don't just disrupt their telepathic communications? What if we overload them completely? What do you mean? Dr. Kang asked. Every human ship has quantum processors that amplify our emotional brain patterns. If we could synchronize all of them at once, create a massive wave of chaotic human thought. Tactical Officer Shin immediately understood the implications. It would be like screaming directly into their minds. The telepathic feedback could disable every Valdrak in the fleet, but it would also leave us defenseless while we're generating the pulse, Captain Lee pointed out. If it doesn't work, they'll destroy us all. The human fleet was running out of options. More ships were taking damage, and the Valdrak were beginning to surround them despite their chaotic tactics. Do it, Captain Lee decided. All ships prepare for synchronized quantum pulse. This is our last chance. As the small human fleet prepared for their desperate gambit, War Master Kethvar sensed that something was about to change. These primitive creatures had surprised him repeatedly, but surely they could not have any more impossible tricks to use against the might of the Valdrak Empire. The captured data from the destroyed Valdrak patrol ships revealed something that made Captain Lee Donghyuk's heart race with possibility. Navigator Oh Seung-jin spread the alien star charts across the holographic display in the Taegukum's command center. According to these navigation records, The main Valdrak command station is located in our asteroid belt hidden behind Ceres, O reported. It's their primary staging area for the Earth invasion. Dr. Kang Woo-jin studied the data with growing excitement. If we could strike at their command center, we might be able to disrupt their entire operation. It's heavily defended, warned Lieutenant Yoon Tae-hyun, analyzing the tactical information. At least 20 ships plus orbital defense platforms and automated weapon systems. Captain Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had already proven themselves in combat, but what he was considering would be far more dangerous than their previous battle. The element of surprise is our greatest advantage, he said finally. They still think we're primitive. They won't expect us to attack their main base. Dr. Park Min-ji had been working on improvements to their quantum interference systems since their first battle. I've been analyzing the telepathic patterns we recorded. If I'm right, we can do more than just jam their communications. We might be able to overload their mental networks entirely. Engineer Choi Hyun-soo looked up from his maintenance reports. The ship is ready, Captain. All repairs from our last engagement are complete, and I've made some upgrades to our weapons systems. What kind of upgrades? Asked weapons specialist Lim Ga-young, who had joined the crew after the battle with the patrol fleet. I've been studying the alien hull materials we collected, Choi explained. Their crystalline armor is incredibly strong against energy weapons, but it has a resonance frequency. If we can match that frequency with our kinetic projectiles, we can shatter their hulls more effectively. Pilot Nam Soo-young was already running flight simulations for the asteroid belt approach. The trip will take us 18 hours at maximum faster than light speed. But once we drop out of FTL, we'll be in the middle of their defensive perimeter. How many ships can we handle at once? Captain Lee asked. In open space with room to maneuver, maybe 5 or 6, Soo-young replied honestly. But if they surround us, we'll be in trouble. Security Chief Park Kyung-min had been unusually quiet during the planning session. Now he spoke up with a suggestion that surprised everyone. What if we don't just attack their ships? What if we board their command station? The bridge fell silent as everyone considered this audacious idea. You want to put humans on an alien space station? Dr. Kang asked. Think about it, Kyung-min continued. They've never faced non-telepathic enemies before. Their security systems are probably designed to detect and counter other telepathic species. Human minds might be completely invisible to their defenses. Dr. Park's eyes lit up with understanding. And if we could capture their central computer systems, we might be able to learn everything about their invasion plans and their technology. Captain Lee made his decision. We'll do both. Hit their fleet with everything we have, then send a boarding party to take their command station. Park Kyung-min, select your best people. This will be the most dangerous mission any human has ever attempted. 2 days later, the Taegukam dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the asteroid belt. Through the ship's advanced sensors, they could see the Valdrak command station, a massive structure built into a hollowed-out asteroid, surrounded by defensive ships and weapon platforms. Energy signatures indicate at least 30 vessels, reported Oh Sung-jin. And I'm reading weapons platforms that could destroy us with a single shot. Remember, Captain Lee told his crew, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to cause as much damage as possible and get out alive. Soo-young brought the Taegukam in fast and low, using the asteroids as cover. The alien sensors, designed to detect the organized approach patterns of telepathic fleets, completely missed the seemingly random path of the human ship. Lim Ga-young opened fire first, targeting the automated defense platforms with the new resonance frequency kinetic rounds. The alien weapons exploded in brilliant flashes as their crystalline structures shattered from the inside out. Direct hits on 12 platforms, she reported. Their defensive grid is collapsing. The Valdrak ships scrambled to respond, but their telepathic coordination was already being disrupted by Dr. Park's quantum interference generators. Ships that should have moved in perfect formation began colliding with each other as their mental links failed. Boarding party, prepare for launch, Captain Lee ordered. Park Kyung-min led a team of 12 specialists in specially designed assault pods toward the command station. The pods were built using the same stealth technology as the Taegukam, making them nearly invisible to alien sensors. As they approached the station's docking bays, Kyung-min could see that the alien security systems were in complete confusion. Warning lights flashed everywhere, but the automatic defenses seemed unable to lock onto targets they couldn't predict or understand. Remember, our minds work differently from theirs, he told his team over the radio. Stay focused, stay human, and their telepathic detection systems won't know we're there. The boarding pods punched through the station's hull in areas where the structural scans showed the least resistance. The humans inside wore advanced combat suits that protected them from the alien atmosphere while enhancing their natural abilities. Medical Officer Dr. Song Yunji monitored the team's biological signs from the Tegukum. All boarding party members showing normal vital signs. The alien atmosphere isn't toxic to humans, but it's very thin. Inside the station, Park Kyungmin and his team found corridors filled with panicking Valdrak personnel. The aliens were tall and graceful, but they seemed completely unprepared for close combat against non-telepathic enemies. Their movements are too predictable, reported demolitions expert Hong Jinsol over the radio. It's like they're following a script instead of reacting to what we're actually doing. The human team moved through the station using tactics that would have been impossible for telepathic species. They split up, regrouped, and used individual initiative instead of coordinated group thinking. To the Valdrak defenders, it looked like pure chaos. Technology specialist Kim Jae-ho reached the station's central computer core first. The alien systems were incredibly advanced, but they were also completely unprepared for non-telepathic interaction. I'm in their main database, he reported. And you're not going to believe what I'm finding. This isn't just an invasion force, it's a harvesting operation. They're planning to strip Earth of every valuable resource and then move on to the next world. Meanwhile, the Tegukum continued its assault on the Valdrak fleet. Engineer Choi had been right about the resonance frequencies. Their kinetic weapons were tearing through alien ships like paper, but the humans were taking damage too. The Valdrak energy weapons were incredibly powerful, and several direct hits had damaged the Tegukum's armor and systems. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, Damage Control Chief Hong Jinsol reported from engineering. But we can still fight. Lieutenant Yoon coordinated the ship's defensive systems while Lim Gayung kept up a steady barrage against the alien fleet. We've destroyed 18 ships, but more are coming from other parts of the asteroid belt. On the command station, Park Kyungmin's team had reached the bridge where the Valdrak commanders were trying to coordinate their defense. The aliens were in complete chaos, their telepathic abilities useless against enemies they couldn't predict or understand. Station Commander Quexdal looked up in shock as human soldiers burst into his command center. He tried to use his telepathic abilities to confuse or control them, but human minds operated on completely different principles from any species he had encountered. Surrender your command codes, Park Kyungmin demanded, his weapon trained on the alien commander. Quexdal's glowing eyes widened in fear and confusion. These primitive creatures had somehow penetrated his most secure facility and defeated his most advanced defenses. It was impossible, yet it was happening. You cannot understand our technology, the alien commander said in broken human speech. Your minds are too simple. Kim Jae-ho looked up from the computer systems he had been analyzing. Actually, your technology is too simple for us. Everything is based on telepathic interfaces. Once we figured out how to disrupt those, your systems became defenseless. The human boarding party had accomplished their mission. They had captured the command station, downloaded massive amounts of intelligence data, and proven that human tactics could defeat even the most advanced alien defenses. All teams, return to the Tegukum, Captain Lee ordered. We've done enough damage for one day. As the human ship retreated from the asteroid belt, carrying its prisoners and captured data, High Commander Vextar received reports that filled him with rage and growing fear. The humans had attacked his main command base and won. They had destroyed half his fleet and captured his most important intelligence facility, and they had done it all with just one ship. For the first time in his 3 centuries of conquest, Vextar began to wonder if he had underestimated his enemy. 2 weeks into the alien occupation, the Tegukum rose from its hidden base beneath the Pacific Ocean. The massive ship emerged from what appeared to be empty water, its advanced camouflage systems having kept it hidden from Valdrak sensors for years. Captain Lee Dong-hyuk stood on the bridge, feeling the neural connections linking his mind to the ship's systems. The sensation was strange but wonderful. He could sense every part of the vessel as if it were his own body. Beside him, Dr. Kang Woo-jin monitored the quantum processors that made their technology possible. All systems showing green, reported engineer Choi Hyun-soo from his station. Fusion reactors at full power, weapon systems online, stealth field active. Pilot Nam Soo-young sat in the primary control seat, her consciousness partially merged with the ship's navigation systems. Through the neural link, she could feel the Taegukum's eagerness to fly among the stars. "Captain, we're ready for our first real test." The test came sooner than expected. As the Taegukum moved through Earth's atmosphere, invisible to most sensors, they encountered a Valdrak patrol fleet of 5 ships heading toward the Australian mining operations. "Enemy vessels detected," announced Lieutenant Yoon Tae-hyun from the tactical station. "They're on a direct course for the Sydney extraction site." Captain Lee made his decision quickly. "This is why we built this ship. All crew prepare for combat." Dr. Park Minji, now serving as the ship's science officer, studied the approaching alien vessels on her displays. "Their ships are using the same energy patterns we detected from the larger vessels. But I'm reading something interesting. Their communication systems are creating quantum interference." "What kind of interference?" Dr. Kang asked. "Remember how I said human emotions create quantum fluctuations? Well, the alien telepathic communications seem to operate on similar quantum frequencies. If we could amplify our natural human brain patterns." She quickly programmed the ship's systems to boost the quantum effects created by the crew's thoughts and emotions. "Everyone, I need you to focus on strong emotions. Anger, determination, anything intense." The crew concentrated on their feelings about the alien invasion, the fear they had felt, the anger at seeing their world attacked, the determination to protect their families and friends. The ship's quantum processors amplified these emotions into waves of chaotic energy. On the lead Valdrak ship, Commander Thexamore suddenly felt his telepathic connection to his fleet becoming unclear and distorted. The normally perfect mental link between Valdrak ships began showing strange gaps and interference. "What is causing this disruption?" he asked his communications officer through their weakening mental link. "Unknown, Commander. Something is creating quantum static on our telepathic frequencies." Pilot Nam Soo-young chose that moment to reveal the Taegukum. The ship dropped its camouflage and appeared directly above the Valdrak formation, moving with speed and grace that no Valdrak vessel could match. "Impossible," Thexamore said aloud, his telepathic abilities too disrupted for mental speech. "These primitives do not have space-capable vessels." The Taegukum proved him wrong by opening fire with weapons the Valdrak had never seen before. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, the human ship fired kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, using gravity manipulation technology. Lieutenant Yoon had studied Valdrak defensive systems through the debris Dr. Park had analyzed. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving objects. But they can't handle solid projectiles moving at 90% of light speed. The first volley punched through the Valdrak shields like they weren't there. 2 alien ships exploded immediately, their crystalline hulls shattered by impacts their designers never anticipated. "Evasive maneuvers," Thexamore ordered, but his remaining ships moved in the predictable patterns that worked well for telepathically coordinated fleets. Soo-young had trained for years to think like a human instead of a machine. She threw the Taegukum into a series of moves that seemed random and chaotic, exactly the kind of flight pattern that would confuse minds expecting logical, predictable behavior. The alien ships fired their energy weapons, but the beams passed through empty space where their target computers predicted the human ship would be. The Taegukum twisted and spun through space in ways that hurt to watch, following no pattern that telepathic minds could anticipate. "They're using some kind of random flight system," the Valdrak tactical officer reported to his commander. "Our targeting systems cannot lock onto them." What the aliens didn't understand was that Soo-young wasn't using a random system at all. She was flying on instinct and emotion, responding to threats the way a human fighter pilot would, with creativity, intuition, and controlled chaos. The Taegukum struck again, this time targeting the alien ship's communication arrays. More kinetic projectiles fired with perfect accuracy destroyed the telepathic relay systems that allowed Valdrak fleets to coordinate their attacks. Without their mental links, the remaining alien ships became confused and disorganized. They had relied on telepathic coordination for so long that they had forgotten how to fight as individual vessels. Dr. Kang monitored the battle through the ship's sensors. "Minji, you were right about their weaknesses. They can't adapt to non-telepathic tactics. And they definitely didn't expect us to have faster-than-light-capable ships," she replied. watching as the Tegukum's weapons destroyed another Valdrak vessel. The last alien ship in the patrol tried to retreat, but Su Yung had already anticipated the move. The Tegukum intercepted the fleeing vessel and disabled its engines with surgical precision. "Should we destroy it?" Lieutenant Yoon asked. Captain Lee thought for a moment. "No, let it return to their fleet. I want them to know that humans are not as primitive as they believed." Engineer Choi was already analyzing the battle data. "Captain, our weapons performed perfectly, but we used a lot of energy. If we're going to fight their main fleet, we'll need to be more efficient." Communications Officer Bei Gina had been monitoring Valdrak transmissions during the battle. "Sir, I'm picking up emergency communications from the surviving ship. They're reporting to their commanders that they encountered an unknown vessel with impossible capabilities." "What are they saying exactly?" Dr. Park asked. Bei translated the alien communications. "They're claiming that humans have developed space combat technology that operates outside known physics. They're also reporting that their telepathic systems were somehow jammed by the human ship." Captain Lee smiled. "Good, let them be confused. The more they underestimate human ingenuity, the better our chances." As the Tegukum returned to its hidden base, the crew felt a mixture of pride and concern. They had won their first battle against the aliens, but it had been just a small patrol fleet. The main Valdrak invasion force contained hundreds of ships and thousands of experienced warriors. Dr. Kang reviewed the combat data with his team. "We proved that our technology can hurt them, and that our human thinking patterns give us tactical advantages they don't expect. But we're still just one ship against an empire." "Then we'd better make sure we use every advantage we have," Captain Lee replied. "And we'd better hope that the other Phoenix Protocol facilities around the world are having similar success with their projects." High Commander Vextar received the report of the patrol fleet's destruction with disbelief and growing anger. In 3 centuries of conquest, no primitive species had ever destroyed Valdrak ships in open combat. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his science advisors. "These humans barely have metal flying machines that can leave their atmosphere." The surviving ship reports that the human vessel used unknown propulsion and weapons technology, his chief scientist replied, "through their telepathic link. It also claims that human minds can somehow interfere with our communication systems." Vextar's glowing eyes grew brighter with rage. "Impossible. These creatures are not even telepathic. They cannot affect our quantum communication networks." But even as he denied the possibility, Vextar began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. If the humans had been hiding advanced technology, what else might they be capable of? On Earth, in secret facilities around the world, other human scientists and engineers received the news of the Tegukum's victory with celebration and renewed determination. The first blow had been struck against the alien invaders. The war for Earth's freedom had truly begun. 3 days after the alien ultimatum, Dr. Kang Woojin led Dr. Park Minji through a series of security checkpoints deep beneath the streets of Seoul. They traveled in an elevator that went down 30 floors below the subway system, into tunnels that most people never knew existed. "Where are we going?" Minji asked as armed guards checked their identification for the 3rd time. "Somewhere that might give us hope," Woojin replied, his face serious. The elevator finally stopped, and the doors opened to reveal a massive underground facility. Minji gasped as she saw hundreds of scientists and engineers working at computer stations and equipment that looked decades ahead of anything she knew existed on Earth. "Welcome to Phoenix Protocol," Woojin said. "We've been working on this for 20 years, preparing for the day when humanity might face an enemy from the stars." A tall man in a military uniform approached them. "Dr. Kang, good to see you made it safely. The Emergency Council is waiting for your report on the alien technology." "Minji, this is General Nam Kiwan. He's been in charge of Phoenix Protocol since the beginning." Minji shook the general's hand, still looking around in amazement. "I can't believe this place exists. How did you keep it secret?" "Very carefully," General Nam replied, "and with the help of several other nations who shared our concerns about potential alien threats. This facility connects to similar bases in 12 countries around the world." As they walked through the facility, Woojin explained what Minji was seeing. "We've been developing new technologies based on theoretical physics that most mainstream scientists thought was impossible. Faster than light travel, energy weapons, advanced materials science. They passed a section where technicians were working on strange blue crystals that glowed with their own inner light. "What are those?" Minji asked. "Quantum processors," replied Dr. Song Haram, a scientist who joined their group. "They use quantum entanglement to perform calculations faster than any computer on the surface world." Minji examined one of the crystals more closely. As a physicist, she could see that the mathematical principles behind the device were completely different from normal computer technology. "This is incredible. How does it work?" "That's where it gets interesting," Dr. Song continued. "We discovered that human consciousness interacts with quantum fields in ways that most species probably never develop. Our brains create small quantum fluctuations just by thinking and feeling emotions." "You mean our thoughts can affect reality at the quantum level?" Minji asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. "In very small ways, yes, and we've learned to amplify those effects with technology." General Nam led them to another section of the facility, where they could see through thick glass windows into a massive construction area. Inside, thousands of workers were building something that took Minji's breath away. It was a spaceship, but unlike any design she had ever seen in movies or books. The vessel was over 2 kilometers long, with a sleek hull that seemed to shift colors as she watched. Strange energy patterns flowed along its surface like rivers of light. "The Tegukum," General Nam said proudly. "Our first true starship. It's been under construction for 15 years, and we were hoping to have another 5 years to complete it. But the alien invasion has forced us to accelerate our timeline." Engineer Choi Hyun-soo joined their group, his hands covered in grease from working on the ship's systems. "We've been installing the final components around the clock since the aliens arrived. The fusion reactors are online, the weapon systems are nearly complete, and we've tested the faster-than-light drive in computer simulations." "Faster than light?" Minji asked. "How is that possible?" "By folding space-time using controlled gravity fields," Choi explained. "The theoretical work was done decades ago, but we only recently developed materials strong enough to contain the energies involved." They moved to another area where Minji saw people training in strange machines that looked like a cross between a flight simulator and a medical scanner. Thin cables connected the trainees to the machines, and their bodies were held in place by fields of blue energy. "Neural interface training," explained pilot Nam Soo-young as she stepped out of one of the machines. "The Tegukum is too complex for normal controls. The pilot has to connect directly with the ship's systems through a mental link." Lieutenant Yoon Tae-hyun was monitoring the training from a control station. "It takes months to learn how to merge your consciousness with the ship's computer systems without losing your sense of self. We've been training a select group of pilots since the program began." General Nam brought them to a conference room where other members of the Phoenix Protocol leadership were waiting. On the walls were displays showing the current situation around the world. The Valdrak ships were beginning to establish permanent bases on Earth's surface, and human governments were struggling to maintain order. "The aliens are setting up resource extraction sites," reported Intelligence Officer Kim Soo-hyun. "They're taking metals, rare earth elements, and energy sources. But they're also studying our biology and technology." "What have they learned about us?" Woo Jin asked. "Not as much as they think," Kim replied with a slight smile. "They're scanning our public technology and military equipment, but they haven't detected any of our underground facilities. Their sensors seem designed to find energy signatures and metal structures that match their own technology patterns." Dr. Park Minji had been listening carefully to everything she heard. Now she spoke up with an idea that had been forming in her mind. "The alien material I analyzed, it showed signs of telepathic resonance fields. I think these beings communicate and control their technology through mental connections. That matches what we've observed," confirmed communications specialist Bei Gina. "Our intercepted alien transmissions don't use radio waves or any electromagnetic spectrum we recognize. They seem to be using some form of direct mind-to-mind communication." Minji stood up and moved to one of the displays showing the alien ships. "If their entire civilization is based on telepathic communication, then they probably develop technology very differently from us. They might not understand how non-telepathic species think and build things." "What do you mean?" General Nam asked. "They expect other intelligent species to be like them, organized, predictable, unified in their thinking. But humans are chaotic, emotional, and individualistic. Our quantum processors work because of our unique brain patterns. Our technology developed along completely different paths because we can't read each other's minds. Wu Jin began to understand where his colleague was going with this idea. You're saying that our supposed primitive nature might actually be an advantage? Exactly, Minji replied, her excitement growing. They think we're weak because we're not telepathic. But what if our emotional, chaotic minds are something they can't predict or counter? Engineer Choi looked up from his technical reports. The ship's systems are designed to work with human brain patterns. If the aliens are used to telepathic control, they might not understand how to interface with our technology, even if they capture it. Pilot Nam Soo-young added her own thoughts. And if they communicate through mind links, what happens when they encounter pilots who think and react in completely unpredictable ways? General Nam nodded slowly. So we're not just building a ship to fight them. We're building a weapon system that operates on principles they've never encountered before. The question is, said Lieutenant Yoon, will it be enough? They have hundreds of ships and thousands of years of conquest experience. Dr. Kang Woo-jin looked around the room at the faces of people who had dedicated their lives to preparing for this moment. We're about to find out. How long until the Tagukum is ready for its first test flight? Choi consulted his tablet. 72 hours if we push everything to maximum acceleration. But that's cutting it very close on safety checks. Do it, General Nam ordered. The aliens gave us 30 days. We're not going to waste a single one of them. As the meeting broke up and everyone returned to their urgent tasks, Minji stayed behind with Wu Jin. Do you really think we have a chance against them? Wu Jin looked at the display showing the Tagukum nearing completion. The aliens think they know everything about us based on what they can see on the surface. They have no idea that humanity has been preparing for this day for decades. They underestimate us because we seem primitive and divided. He turned to face his friend, but they're about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you don't take seriously. The morning sky over Seoul turned dark as massive shadows blocked out the sun. Dr. Kang Woo-jin looked up from his computer screen in the underground laboratory and felt his heart skip a beat. Through the security monitors, he could see enormous alien ships floating above the city like metal mountains in the sky. Minji, come look at this, he called to his colleague across the room. Dr. Park Minji rushed over, her eyes growing wide as she stared at the screens. The alien vessels were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like giant crystals made of dark metal, with bright blue lights pulsing along their surfaces. Each ship was at least 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. Above every major city on Earth, the same scene was playing out. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Mumbai, all had alien ships hovering overhead like silent threats. Captain Lee Dong-hyuk was in a meeting at the Korean Space Force headquarters when the alarms started screaming. Officers ran through the hallways shouting orders and trying to contact other military bases around the world. Through the windows he could see people in the streets pointing up at the sky in fear and wonder. Sir, we're getting reports from every continent, his aide reported. The ships appeared at exactly the same time everywhere. No warning, no previous contact. Lee Dong-hyuk grabbed his radio. Get me Commander Kim Ji-woo. We need to start evacuation procedures immediately. In the underground bunker beneath Seoul, Dr. Park Minji was already analyzing the first pieces of data they could gather about the alien ships. Small pieces of metal had fallen from the vessels during their arrival, and she was studying them under her most powerful microscopes. Wu Jin, this material is incredible, she said, her voice filled with both excitement and worry. The atomic structure is completely different from anything on Earth. These beings are far more advanced than us. Dr. Kang Woo-jin nodded grimly. He had been working on secret projects for the Korean government for years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. How advanced do you think they are? At least 1,000 years ahead of us, maybe more, Minji replied. Suddenly, every television screen, radio, and electronic device on Earth began broadcasting the same message. The voice was strange and mechanical, speaking in broken human languages mixed together. Humans of the small world, the voice said. We are the Valdrak Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds across the galaxy. Your planet now belongs to us. The broadcast showed images of the alien speakers. They looked like tall, thin creatures covered in crystal-like armor that seemed to grow from their skin. Their eyes glowed with an inner blue light, and they moved with fluid grace that suggested they were much stronger than they appeared. You have 30 of your day cycles to surrender all your resources to us, the voice continued. Give us your metals, your energy sources, and your fertile lands. Those who cooperate will live as servants. Those who resist will be removed. High Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship looking down at the primitive world below. Through his telepathic senses, he could feel the fear and confusion of the humans. It amused him. In his 3 centuries of life, he had overseen the conquest of dozens of worlds. This one would be no different. "How long until the harvesting begins?" asked his second-in-command. "Soon," Vextar replied through their mental link. "These creatures are even more primitive than our scouts reported. Look at their crude metal flying machines trying to approach our ships. They cannot even leave their own atmosphere properly. Indeed, fighter jets from various Earth nations were attempting to get close to the Valdrak vessels. But they were moving too slowly, and their weapons were laughably weak compared to Valdrak technology." Captain Lee Dong-hyuk was coordinating with military leaders from around the world through secure video links. Every nation was reporting the same thing. Their most advanced weapons had no effect on the alien ships. "The Americans tried nuclear missiles," reported a general from the Pentagon. "They bounced off the alien shields like tennis balls." "The Russians fired everything they had," added another voice. "Not even a scratch." Lee Dong-hyuk felt a cold fear growing in his chest. If the combined military might of Earth could not damage these ships, how could humanity possibly survive? Commander Kim Ji-woo was leading evacuation efforts in Seoul, but she could see that people were too scared to move in an organized way. Some were trying to flee the city while others were hiding in their homes hoping the aliens would ignore them. "We need to get people to the underground shelters," she radioed to her teams. "The subway tunnels can hold thousands of people." But even as she spoke, she wondered if it would make any difference. If the aliens wanted to destroy the cities, could anything protect the civilians? To demonstrate their power, the Valdrak chose 10 military bases around the world and destroyed them with bright beams of energy that shot down from their ships. The bases simply vanished, turned to dust in seconds. The message was clear. Resistance was pointless. Dr. Kang Woo-jin watched the destruction on the news feeds and felt anger rising in his chest alongside his fear. These aliens thought humans were just another primitive species to be enslaved or wiped out. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. "Minji," he said quietly, "I need to show you something, but first, you have to promise me you'll keep it secret." Dr. Park Minji looked at her longtime friend and colleague. "What are you talking about?" "There are things the government has been working on. Projects that most people don't know about. Technologies that might give us a chance against these invaders." Before Minji could respond, another broadcast from the aliens filled the screens around them. This time High Commander Vextar himself appeared, his crystal armor gleaming and his glowing eyes fixed on the camera. "Humans," he said, his voice filled with contempt. "We have studied your species for many cycles. You are violent, chaotic, and barely intelligent. Your technology is crude, your society is fractured, and your minds are closed to the greater universe." He paused, and Woo-jin could almost feel the alien's arrogance through the screen. "We offer you this choice because we are merciful," Vextar continued. "Serve us and some of you will live. Resist us and your entire species will join the countless others we have removed from existence. You have 30 days to decide." The broadcast ended, leaving the humans in silence. Around the world, people looked up at the alien ships and wondered if this was the end of human civilization. But in underground laboratories and secret facilities, scientists and engineers like Dr. Kang Woo-jin were already making plans. The aliens thought humans were primitive and weak. They were about to learn how wrong they could be.